Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com, and the president of the Football Writers Association of America. We're coming to you on our live on our YouTube channel, the CFB Nation YouTube channel. Again, if you want to subscribe, just go over to youtube.com, search CFB Nation, and click subscribe. The world is sort of off kilter a little bit right now with a Cloudflare outage. Sportingnews.com is knocked offline. Twitter was knocked offline for a while this morning. It's still slowly coming back. Things don't seem right. But, Bill, are you surviving this, this few hours without Twitter?
I'll be all right. Yeah, I'll survive without social media. I wish our kids could survive without it for a few hours. No, it's good. It's been a busy, week to start, obviously, with the James Franklin hiring. I know we're going to talk about that today. Excited though, we're getting close to rivalry week and just putting everything together. And you will be able to read about it shortly on sportingnews.com. We definitely had a take about Franklin.
Yes. So I am on vacation here from sportingnews.com for a few days, but I'm still coming back to the CFB Nation peeps. Love the CFB Nation people here, of course. So we're going to talk about James Franklin. We're going to talk a little Lane Kiffin. We're going to talk a little CFP rankings that come out tonight and see what you think about Notre Dame and Alabama. Really is kind of the story, how far Alabama will drop. But first, I want to get in to some Trocchi trivia. Are you ready, Mr. Bender?
I am.
All right. In his 29 years as head coach at Virginia Tech, how many New Year's Six Bowls did Frank Beamer make? And the New Year's Six, I'm talking orange, cotton, sugar, rose, fiesta, Chick-fil-A.
Like through the BCS era too?
All 29 years.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
How many New Year's Six Bowls did Frank Beamer take Virginia Tech? So we will get to that at the end of the show, if you think about that. Now, Bill, like I said, I had other obligations yesterday. James Franklin was hired by Virginia Tech. You wrote a column at sportingnews.com. Sportingnews.com is down right now. Excuse me. You and I didn't talk about it. I don't know what you said. So let me know, what's your take on James Franklin? This is going to be a live reaction between you, editor and writer, with the editor having no feedback.
I mean, it allows both basically a fresh start. I think Virginia Tech is a program that's lacked that identity of Beamer ball. When you think of Virginia Tech, and if our listeners, if you closed your eyes and thought of Virginia Tech, you would think Metallica, Enter Sandman, block punt, Michael Vick, 1990s. And it's been a minute since they've been that. They have not beat ranked teams. They've struggled in the ACC in the playoff era. I can tell you, one thing with the playoff era, they haven't been to a lot of BCS or, New Year's Day 6 type bowls. So that's been the adjustment. And then James Franklin gets a new identity. He knows that area. He, all the 10-win seasons, the success that he's had. You could make the argument, and I looked back at it, late 90s, 2000s, Virginia Tech was a better program than Penn State. I mean, the numbers show that. Virginia Tech was a player in those bowl games. You were talking about regular in the ACC championship. And I think Franklin can accomplish that there. I mean, you have a 5-loss team that's still in the hunt for the ACC championship. So you can't tell me James Franklin can't do that. And, but the opinions vary. He'll have to reprove the big game thing, and Virginia Tech needs to reprove the big game thing. So maybe they can do it together. Maybe it will work. Maybe it won't. And the other thing I'll say is I think him taking Virginia Tech tells me that the SEC really wasn't interested. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but maybe this is the better fit. And it also tells me that this Lane Kiffin soap opera is about to become just that.
It is. So speaking of Virginia Tech, like you said, they haven't had a double-digit win season since 2016. Justin Fuente's first season, they went 10-4 after they won the Belk Bowl. So they were 9-4 in the regular season. Even Frank Beamer's last 4 years, 7, 8, 7, 7 wins. So they had faded a little bit from the glory days of where they were. And, they haven't finished ranked in the top 20, or one time Fuente did with that year. Other than that, it's been 2010. So it has been a minute for Virginia Tech for sure. I think they have 5 or 6 straight losing seasons. 1, 2, 3 now.
Yeah, and they're headed toward another one. And
Brent Pry had a 7 and 6 season. So anyway, yeah, I think it's an absolute perfect fit for Franklin. I think he had to step down in level, a conference. I think he, ideally, if I'm Franklin, getting into his mind, I think he was hoping Florida State would open and he could go down there in the ACC, because the ACC is there for the taking wherever you go, right? I think the upper third of the ACC is the worst of the Power Four. And I think the middle third of the ACC is the worst of the Power Four right now. Bottom is the bottom. Who cares? But I do think it's there. And we talked about it two podcasts ago that Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are never good at the same time. And I think he's a guy that will generate a lot of enthusiasm. He's going to a program that has committed $225 million over the next 4 years to the athletic department, which is perfect timing. When you make that kind of financial commitment, wins generally follow. It's going to burnish his reputation as a program builder. He had that reputation at Vanderbilt. He won 9 games 2 years in a row. The last 2 years he left. Upon further review, he did not do what Clark Lee is doing at Vanderbilt. He beat one ranked team in 3 years. It was a team. Georgia was ranked 15 at the time of the game. They finished 8-5 that season and unranked. For whatever reason, the SEC East was kind of struggling when he was there. I looked it up. Florida went 18-16 in his 3 years at Vanderbilt. Georgia went 30-11, which is solid.
All right.
And Tennessee was 15-21. Kentucky was 9-27. And they played Wake Forest as a non-conference team every year, and they were 15-22. So,
right.
He beat the teams he was supposed to be, kind of like Penn State. Beat the teams he was supposed to beat, didn't totally overachieve against teams with equal or greater talent. And that's kind of what happened at Penn State as well. But I do think in his mindset, he wants to win a national championship. I think Virginia Tech is a 3 or 4 year stepping stone type job to get a true blue blood. I think he still has his eye on the ultimate prize, and he's going to get them into the top. If he gets them into the top 10, then everyone's going to want him. And suddenly he's going to be at Florida, or he's going to be wherever he's going to be. So good idea for him. And I think, like I said, the ACC is ripe for the taking. So I think it's a good move for him. I think it's smart. I think that, I don't know what the appetite was in the SEC. I don't know that Auburn necessarily wanted him. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. So now one of the big names is gone. But let's talk about Lane for a second. You brought him up, Lane Kiffin. He supposedly, it looks like Keith Carter, the athletic director at Ole Miss, I think he talked to the Athletic and On3 about giving Lane an ultimatum. I don't know what leverage Ole Miss has to give him an ultimatum necessarily. Like, what are they going to do? Fire him? Or I didn't understand that. I can understand them wanting an answer, but I don't know what leverage they have. But anyway, Ole Miss wants to know this week and put an end to this. And Lane enjoys the spotlight. He enjoys stretching it out. What do you think is going to happen?
Who knows? I mean, this is infinitely more interesting than James Franklin now. I mean, because you have a team actively in the playoff hunt. And like Father Penny says, if I'm a player, I'm angry. Like, not angry, just they'll always parrot that, hell, it's the business side of this, and we understand that. But you're in the middle. This is the first real one because now you have a Power 4 coach in the middle. They're going to go to the playoff. They're in. They're 10-1. They've got a bye week here to get ready for the Egg Bowl. I'm sure Ole Miss is like, we don't want any distractions for the Egg Bowl because it's the Egg Bowl. But yeah, they're in the playoff. So what if your coach leaves? Somebody will say, well, how could a coach leave in the middle of a playoff run? Well, Lane's already done that as an offensive coordinator. They let him go after the Washington game that they won by 17 en route to and then Sark took play calling duties for a national championship game. So it's not like, and Lane's not a stranger to strange exits. Ask Tennessee, ask USC. I don't think he had a weird exit from FAU, but it's gonna get weird. And I think
it already got weird. Did you see this morning? So this morning,
right.
after those reports come out that Ole Miss is demanding an answer this week, he got on Twitter and it was posted at 5:12 a.m. Oxford time. I don't know what time it came out to the rest of the world because X was down for a while, but now it's back. He has a photo of a section of a book. It says day 223. And so people had to research who the book is. So the book is named The Pivot Year by Brianna Wiest, a 33-year-old author. And the comment that he posted from the book, he took a photo of page 223 or day 223. It says, how do you know what to do next? You ask yourself, honestly, what your 90-year-old self would advise you to do. What they would have wished you had done. You ask yourself, honestly, what you've sensed from the beginning, what you have ignored, what you have quieted and distracted yourself from. You make two lists, the positives and the negatives, and you weigh them. And if there is one thing on the left that overpowers a dozen things on the right, then you trust that. You ask yourself, what path will make you more of the person you are meant to be? And Lane's comment is, have the best Tuesday ever, everyone. So
I don't do that kind of stuff. I mean, you've been around me long enough. There's very little gray.
He's leaning into the drama, baby.
There's no gray. I don't live in the gray area much. It's most of my life is black and white. You either do it or you don't. Like that's Yoda, right? Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. That's such an easier way. He should just tweet that. Tweet a picture of Yoda. You'd either do it or you don't. There's no try. Go do what you want to do. And I get there's a lot to think about in this situation. And I'm not Lane Kiffin, and I'm not a hyper-successful power coach who, I mean, I think this ends with, not speculating, I think it ends with him at LSU. That's what I think. I think he's going to end up at LSU. And
so the reports
that we're headed
flew his family down there. His family took a trip to LSU and took a trip to Gainesville this week, reportedly. And Lane was not on either trip, but he did send, quote unquote, his family.
I think he has the right to look around. Like, I mean, but you are in the middle of this. It also ends with the NFL. Like, if we're going to hire coaches like we do in the NFL, you can fire the guys during the season, but you never have NFL teams don't hire guys during the season. Like, the Titans aren't hiring somebody right now. They wait till the end of the season. If Green Bay fired Matt LaFleur, which they won't because they actually beat the Giants this weekend, they don't do it till the end of the season. And I think,
and you can't hire a coach under contract without compensation,
right?
In the NFL, you can't grab
No, you can't go get, like, the Titans can't hire Jeff Hafley right now, the Packers defensive coordinator. It just they could probably back channel and talk,
or the sitting head coach somewhere.
I don't even think they can do that.
Right.
I think that's tampering. So there are ways around that, though. But yeah, I don't know. I think it ends up with him at LSU. And I think that means Tennessee hates him. That means Ole Miss hates him. That means Florida hates him if he flew down there. But you know what? That's my prediction.
Okay.
That he ends up at LSU. And I'll probably write about that at Sporting News today. And
Well,
and
let's
win
go
this.
down that road for a second. So he ends up at LSU. How does it play out? Does he finish? Does he make an announcement and say, I'm going to take Ole Miss through the playoff, but I'm going to LSU next year?
That won't work.
Or does he physically leave the team and let somebody else coach him through the playoff?
He would leave then. They're not going to let that. Do you think people at Ole Miss are going to let him coach through a season and then go to LSU? There's no way. There's no way. They would. You can say that would work in theory, but no. They'll show up for a first-round playoff game. Who do we have them projected to play right now? We have them. Well, I can't look because I can't. I have a Word doc. We still have Word. Let me look at from Saturday.
Still have
Saturday.
Word. Sporting News.
That seems like 4 days ago, by the way.
Has Sporting News come up yet?
Yeah.
Oh, we're back. We're back.
We're back up. Good. Ole Miss playing Oklahoma in a rematch. You think they go out and lay a dud against Oklahoma in a rematch and lose, and then Ole Miss people are going to blame him? The way that those fan bases act, they say, get out now. We don't want you here. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. That's the reaction that's going to happen if through this ultimatum he says, I'm going to go coach LSU, and then that's going to shake up everything. It'll make Brian Kelly to LSU and Lincoln Riley to USC. That will pale in comparison if that happens.
I mean, remember, Luke Fickell wouldn't leave Cincinnati for Notre Dame
they're not in the same conference.
No, I know, but he's stuck with his team. Is my point. It's like
he did it right.
He probably had an option to go to Notre Dame when Kelly left. And he's decided to see the playoff through at Cincinnati, and Notre Dame ended up turning to Marcus Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they preferred Fickell at that point. I mean, Fickell was doing miracles at Cincinnati at the time, and but he stuck with it. And Lane, I mean, it just feeds his personality, right? He's like, he could shut it down. He could have shut it down weeks ago, and several coaches have shut it down. And he is stringing it out. So your theory is he is going to go to LSU, and I can see it. It's possible.
LSU is a better. I mean, here's the value judgment though that doesn't that the acceptance has to come. If he stays at Ole Miss, they can forgive like these flirtations, and like we've said, they've got, I can double check, but they've got like the 4th best record among Power 4 programs the last 3 years. If he stayed at Ole Miss long enough, he'd probably get a statue, if he starts taking them to playoffs and they're winning 10 games every year. But LSU's still the better job in theory. He goes down to LSU.
Right now. It's a circus, but like Lane craves the circus.
Oh, he likes it. Some guys like that. It's just like, the analogy of like some people, I was thinking about this last night, scrolling through Netflix, trying to find something to watch before I went to bed. Some people like documentaries. Some people like, like Cake Boss and those kind of reality TV, weird reality TV. I don't watch reality TV.
Killed by Lightning. I just jumped on Killed by Lightning.
That's good. Ohio guy, by the way, James Frank Garfield, another Ohio guy. As we produced a lot of presidents here. But yeah, that's really good, by the way. I did finish that. So some people like that. Some people like trash TV. Lane would, without knowing Lane's TV preferences, I would assume he's somebody that watches like that stuff that I don't. I'm the History Channel nerd, so I try to find a good documentary. I can't find one anymore. Oh, the Revolution one. I missed that. I think Ken Burns' Revolution is. I think I was recording Sunday. I'm gonna have to go to double check, see if I can get that on my DVR.
Gotcha. So, all right. Well, we're going to keep an eye on Old Lane for the rest of the week.
We should.
It was going to be very interesting. Let's do a quick recap of all the comebacks over the weekend, and then we'll try to guess how the CFB rankings will shake out. You took your shot on Saturday night at sportingnews.com. We had big comebacks for teams either hoping to be in the playoff or almost definitely going to be in the playoff and are clinging to hopes in the playoffs. And that was Texas A&M with a 27-point comeback against South Carolina. And then we had Michigan coming back late against Northwestern for a game-winning field goal in the last play of the game. USC had to come back in the rain against Iowa, and Georgia Tech had to come back twice against Boston College. 1-9 Boston College up in Boston, and they did it. Credit to them for doing it, but 2 weeks in a row, Georgia Tech's defense not looking too good. Of those 4 comebacks, I guess I would rank them from a dramatic perspective.
Come on. You can start the comebacks at number 2, Bill. Come on, man. Texas A&M coming back from 30-3. That shouldn't happen.
30-3. It was like, they were ahead. Early in the fourth quarter. Like it only took them about 18 minutes.
That was the crazy part to me is like, I'm going to walk through with our listeners. Like when you're writing about a game and, this is a dirty secret with writers, we kind of love blowouts. Like if you're sitting at that game and it's 30-3, you're like, sweet, I'm going to be done writing by the end of the fourth quarter. But then you get an even better story because by the end of the third quarter, Marcel Reed was 9 of 12, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns. It happened like, you want to talk about lightning, it was that fast. It was boom, 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 touchdowns. And then all of a sudden they're in the lead. And then you're like, okay, then I have my Texas A&M comeback story done. Then they do a stupid play at the goal line that nearly cost them the game. And it's just, that was a wild game, a wild comeback. And I think, as I write for us, it cuts both ways. On one hand, you could say, how in the hell does the team fall, be down 30-3 to South Carolina? They can't be that good. The red zone was terrible. Some bad interceptions. But then on the other hand, you say championship teams find a way. And I think they're going to end up in Atlanta now. I think they're going to beat Texas. I do. If they lose to Texas, it opens up the door
on the road.
Yeah, but I think they can go beat Texas. I don't know if they will, but either way, they're in the playoff now too. 10 wins, you're in. They're not going to leave a Texas A&M team that's 11-1 with a short loss to Texas out of the playoffs. So good on Mike Elko. That was the best of the 4. Michigan.
Like Marcel Reed, when it started to become a playground game, that's his game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's running around and he's going to throw it every play, and they need big plays and they need them fast. And he was in his backyard and he was just dominant. And so I think it just fed. There was so much momentum. And then when it settled down and they were in the lead, they're trying to protect it. That's when another mistake happened, right?
Right. It was wild. And so a huge comeback for them, obviously. And like I said, it puts them. So I think if they lose to Texas, it opens up the door for Alabama, Georgia to play in the SEC championship game. I mean, by that cumulative conference winning percentage, Texas A&M's is still very poor. Like their opponents are poor, but at the same time, so the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7th place in the SEC. Texas A&M's obviously one of the top 7. They didn't play the other 6. Yeah, I mean that's a weak schedule. And again, you can only
didn't play the other. They will play Texas, of course, but
the combined record of their schedule is in conference play only.
Yeah,
is 15-39. Georgia's is like 25-29. Bama's 26-28. Ole Miss 26-31. And to give like people our listeners reference, if you're at 500 in these monster leagues, that's good. But it's how low it gets. Just real quick, Big Ten, Indiana, for example, 20-43. Ohio State 25-39. Oregon, only team above 500 at 33-32. That's why I think we're undervaluing Oregon a little bit going into this USC game. So when you say you ain't played anybody or you hadn't played anybody, all those things we say, it's probably true with Texas A&M on some level, but you can only play the games in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, yeah. All right. So let's talk about your second. Michigan hung on. They were -5 in turnovers and then somehow ended up winning the game at Wrigley. You had an eye on this game. I didn't see too much of it, but it doesn't sound like Bryce Underwood had a good game until the final drive where he won the game.
No, they didn't play well. And they're not going to have – it doesn't sound like they're going to have Justice Haynes for the Ohio State game. It doesn't sound like they're going to have Jordan Marshall against Maryland this weekend. Offense is very just – hit or miss. Their emphasis in the offseason, they better get some receivers. They've got one. Marsh is pretty good, but just the turnovers. But I was impressed. you could tell Underwood got rattled in the second half as these turnovers happened, but he calmed down. They go get the win. I mean, how many? I think again, it cuts both ways. You say, how can you turn the ball over 5 times and win? On one hand, that means Northwestern couldn't close the deal. On the other, it shows, hey, at least you had enough sense to go down and win the game. And they should beat Maryland this week, and that gets them to the Ohio State game at 9-2. And we can all say, oh, Ohio State's going to crush them this year and blah blah blah, but we did that last year. And I think Ohio State's got a few issues with their receivers' health. You never know what the weather's going to be. Yes, Ohio State should win that game handily, but nobody, I can tell you right now, nobody in Central Ohio is taking that game for granted. Just not one person.
What's your spread as of today?
9.5. It was 20.5 last year. They're not going to do that. I'd say they'd make it about a 10-point spread, and maybe 10.5 if Ohio State plays well and Michigan looks poor again this weekend against Maryland. But still think Michigan's got some dudes on defense. For having 5 turnovers, their defense stood up. But again, they're behind the other team. USC had I guess you want to call it a comeback at Iowa, but they look good in the second half. If I was buying stock in one of those two, I think there's a better chance of USC going into Autzen this weekend and winning than there is Ohio State losing to Michigan again. But it's not like a huge gap to me, because I think Oregon's playing they got their act together, and they looked pretty good on Friday night too.
Mm-hmm. I think Michigan's better than they were last year. Is Ohio State better than they were last year?
Well, their defense is. That their defense is silly. It just doesn't give up much. And the motivation factor. But again, I mean, it sets up that I think Michigan would at minimum need to have Jordan Marshall on the field. I don't think Justice Haynes will play, just judging by the comments. And then, if they're healthy on the defensive side, and a little bit of weather on the 50th anniversary of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I know we've got to get John Bacon on here. He wrote that book. We got to get him on this podcast at some point. But they would need some weather, some goofiness, and who knows? It's psychological at this point for Ohio State. They just got to go out and win the game. And we'll see. We'll have a lot to talk about with that next week, I'm sure. All
right, tonight the rankings come out between games at the Champions Classic. So it's the 6:30. I think Duke's playing Michigan State,
and the same 4 teams Classic.
Yes, the same 4 teams. Champions Classic. And then the doubleheader between games, they released the standings of the CFP, the rankings. And the big question is, does Alabama drop below Notre Dame? Thoughts on that?
The big question is, why is Purdue not in the Champions Classic, or the team that has been the better Big Ten teams or Big Ten programs the last 5 years? I think
so in the AP poll, Alabama dropped to 10, below 1 spot below Notre Dame. Oklahoma jumped up. Notre Dame stayed at 9. Could happen again in the rankings, but that 10 spot is the danger spot, because that's the last team in.
Yeah, D-Rock Irish has got it right. I think it's gonna. Knee-jerk reaction on Saturday night when I put up our projections. I had it 8 Bama, 9 Notre Dame, 10 Oklahoma, which I still think is possible, because they could find a way to give Alabama credit for beating a bunch of ranked teams. But I think he's got it right. I think it'll be 8 Oklahoma, 9 Alabama, 10 Notre Dame. Now, when we get to the pairing portion, I don't think they're going to do an Oklahoma-Bama rematch. I've had this discussion before. When I do that playoff projection, I try not to put teams from the same conference playing each other in the first round. And whether it's deserved or not, okay, so with D-Rocks, it would be, you would have a first-round matchup, Oklahoma-Bama rematch 8-9. The 7-10 matchup would be Ole Miss Notre Dame, which Lane Kiffin may or may not be there for. So that makes Partridge their interim coach versus Notre Dame. So I do think it'll be that's the argument tonight. 8, 9, 10. First 7 will be probably about the same. I want to see if they have the stones to put Texas.
And that's the cutoff. The 10 is the cutoff. Remember, it's 10, right? It's not group of 5, and you got the ACC champ is 11 and 12. 10 is the last team in, and it's really important to see where you are. So Notre Dame was 9 last week in the rankings, and they beat Pitt 37-15, and they could drop to 10. And then they've got Syracuse and Stanford, 2 below average teams to close the season. It really might, and then no championship game. It's going to be hard to stay the last team in if they do drop to 10 tonight.
And they could solve that projection by just putting Notre Dame 8 and then putting Alabama and Oklahoma back-to-back 9 and 10. Maybe by the head-to-head. Then you drop Alabama to 10. Then they're playing Ole Miss in the first round with or without Lane. What a circus that would be. Alabama, Ole Miss. Is Lane coming to the game? That's the SEO headline for that one. And then you have Notre Dame, Oklahoma, which would be a super fun first-round matchup. And then what the other 2 matchups would be 5, Texas Tech or Oregon at 5, probably Texas Tech, in my opinion. I think they're getting close to, I would almost put them at 4. I love what they're doing if you value the regular season. So Texas Tech versus 5 champ, Oregon versus ACC champ. So like Georgia Tech, Oregon, something like that. That's what the field is going to look like. Maybe it's James Madison as the highest ranked group. That's the other thing to watch is James Madison ranked ahead of the highest ranked American Conference champ, which, by the way, I have to take a second here. Chuck Sullivan passed away over the weekend, American Conference communications guy. I sat with, I am going to take a second to talk about Chuck. College football playoff at the championship game, always sat with Chuck, New England guy, big Patriots fan, had that thick accent. Such a nice man. And for him to pass away over the weekend, please go check that out at the American Conference. I think his family has a GoFundMe up. Yeah, that's a tough one. He was a really good man, really good for our industry. But yeah, so there's no easy transition from that. But I know Chuck would be happy with the amount of American Conference teams that are in the hunt because he did such a good job promoting that conference. We'll see.
Yeah, that is going to be another story tonight. Is that who's number 12, right? And in the bracket, so to speak, because the American has so many quality teams right now. Navy getting the win over South Florida, and Notre Dame fans are hoping that Navy, their blowout of Navy, gets them a little credit and gives them a ranked win. I think Navy might have been in the AP this week, 24 or something like that.
I made the joke last week when Cignetti falls to number 5 after they lose to Ohio State, and they're playing James Madison in the first round, the Cignetti Bowl, 5-12. And I said, people will pretend to care about that, but the Mike DeCourcy's of the world, that's what they want. And speaking of which, I think Mike's on with Jim Coyle in Indiana now. That's my next stop on the media tour today. Jim Coyle, ISB, Indianapolis Sports Bulletin. He has Mike and I on back-to-back sometimes, and I just laugh because we're so different. So it'd be fun to see what Jim has to say to us about Indiana today. And
Navy is the first team receiving votes in the AP this week. So
love to get Blake Horvath in the playoff. That'd be kind of cool.
We'll see what happens there tonight. So yeah, lot to look at tonight. Like I said, it's between games, the Champions Classic on ESPN. Tune into that. We are not going to have a live show tonight. We've got some commitments that we are unable to
basketball practice with the girls
like we did. And so we will be back Thursday morning. But before we do, before we get into that, let's get back to Trocchi trivia. Take a guess, Mr. Bender. How many New Year's Day 6 bowls did Frank Beamer take Virginia Tech to in his 29 years as a coach?
That's a wide range. I'm just saying, that's a tough guess. BCS bowls, I think they went to 4. I want to say 4 or 5. I can name a couple of them real quick. We can do the championship game, obviously. They played an Orange Bowl against Kansas. They played a Sugar Bowl against Michigan and lost. They lost a bunch of these. So I'm going to say between both 6.
Virginia Tech made 10.
10. Wow.
New Year's 6 bowls. 4 Orange Bowls.
Okay.
4 Sugar Bowls and 2 Chick-fil-A bowls.
What was our record nose?
I'd have to go down the
Go
list
back
here.
and look. They played in the Peach Bowl twice, huh?
Yep.
But the Peach Bowl wasn't a BCS bowl before.
3-7.
Oh, wow.
In those 10 games. Well, I did check. So they meant the 2 Chick-fil-A bowls were in 06 and 09. They were.
So that's technically not a BCS bowl then.
They were 10-2 both of those years entering the Chick-fil-A bowl. So it wasn't
they were legit then. Yeah.
They were legit. That was my point. Yeah.
I remember the Michigan game. They lost. Michigan won on a field goal. That was a wild game. Then the Kansas game, I remember that one. Everybody obviously remembers the national championship game. But to your point earlier in the podcast,
I actually covered the Orange Bowl when it was Jim Harbaugh's last game at Stanford. Yep. They played Virginia Tech in the Orange Bowl, and Stanford won that game. That was really cool. That was.
And to your point, they haven't really had a. I did research that yesterday. They hadn't had that 10-win season since Justin Fuente's first year. So that's the challenge for James Franklin. And it'll be interesting to see where they go from here with James Franklin. I think it's a positive hire. Haven't read Dan Wolken's column. I think he took the opposite viewpoint, which is fair. I'm going to read that at some point this morning. But first things first, Sporting News is back up, so we better get back to work here.
That's right. That's right. So, all right. Well, thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day. We will see you Thursday morning at 9:30.